Okay, so just to bring this back almost to Bitcoin, we'll get your origin story, but has Bitcoin helped with give you a lens to look at things like this then?
Absolutely. I would say the number one reason is because Bitcoin forces an honest unit of accounting on whatever it touches. So you can't mess around with it, right? Like you can with the dollar, right? The dollar is wink, wink, nod, nod. Hey, hook me up, print some money, and I'll be the first recipient. The Cantillon effect. Bitcoin does not work like that, right? So that honest unit of account is kind of number one. Number two, as we all know, it gives you that lower time preference. So like, how can I build today something that will grow and become something beautiful and awesome and helpful tomorrow? Bitcoin affords you that time versus fiat, which doesn't. Fiat, you feel like I gotta do something now. Like if I'm a politician, I gotta say the right thing to get elected so I can do my thing now. I don't care if I'm screwing the next generation or even 4 years from now. I don't care if I'm screwing them. I need to do what I got to do today to get elected. I got to spend the money today because it's depleting, it's melting in purchasing power right before our eyes. So Bitcoin changes, to me, it just sort of changes everything. And in medicine, because of what I was talking about earlier, where it's this opaque system, right, of payment, it's not a free market, even remotely. Nobody, including doctors, have no idea how much this procedure is going to cost. If I read a CAT scan for somebody, like, is it going to cost them $500, $5,000, $10,000? I just don't know. That we're out of the loop on that system. And so I think Bitcoin would bring back more of a free market to medicine, and that would be a wonderful thing. And then the obvious thing about Bitcoin, and we don't have to go down this tangent right now, but obviously it's designed to increase purchasing power over time versus the government fiat system is designed to deplete purchasing power over time. And so if you're just in medicine, healthcare costs in the US are world famous for how much they've just totally been let out of the bag, right? They're insane. Nobody can afford healthcare. You pay £200 a month for NHS. We pay $2,000 a month for crappy healthcare.
With a big deductible.
With a huge deductible, right. Yeah, $20,000 deductible or something. So
do you know about the deductible?
Yeah. We've got you covered, right? Insurance companies are always there for you until you need them. That's kind of my standard mantra that I tell my patients that. You think you have insurance, you think you're being covered, but you're not. You're covered after you pay your deductible. You got to factor in what you pay each month. You could buy a house for what you spend on health insurance if you save that money for 4 or 5 years or so. So I'm digressing here, but Bitcoin, and what it represents and taking that personal responsibility is another huge thing, right? That's another funny thing about America is we're two different people groups. We're ultra super healthy individuals, and we're just the most horribly, unhealthy, obese population on the planet as well. Depends what kind of population you're looking at. So that taking responsibility for yourself, right? Doing things like just eating well. You're talking about your exercise plan, just walking, getting off your dumb butt for a couple hours a day, right? And walking around the neighborhood and getting some sun and getting enough sleep. That literally, if you could just do that in the US with our just massively overweight population, you could reduce healthcare expenditures by a definitely noticeable amount. But again, to your point earlier, how do doctors make money on that? Well, they can't really, right? It's just giving good advice. Like if people would just listen and actually have self-discipline, take personal responsibility. It's what we talked about. You guys brought up at the discussion last night with Preston and Odell. Taking personal responsibility, right? Being like, I can take ownership of my Bitcoin in cold storage. And so many people put their hands up and they act like they're victims and I need somebody to do this for me, poor me. It's like, well, sure, there will be groups and organizations that will do that for you, but you're losing your freedom then, right? You're going to have to get permission, sort of like with COVID. We're going to tell you can move or you can get out of your house or you can travel, but we're going to protect you, right? It's all under the guise of protection, but we're going to take away your freedom then, if that's what you want us to do. So,
well, I love the personal responsibility side of Bitcoin. I've been putting weight on ever since I started this podcast. I honestly, the length of this podcast, I have probably put on close to 40 pounds.
Nice.
Yeah, like 3.5 stone, right?
All muscle?
I wish. And the reason it's happened is me.
Yeah.
It's my choices. I can make the excuse, well, I'm traveling with work. Well, yeah, but I can still cook a I have daddy cooking for me these days, but I can still like choose to eat healthy. I can still choose to drink less. I can still choose to go for a walk. And I just didn't. I took no personal responsibility. Yeah. It's entirely my fault. And I love that Bitcoin brings back this personal responsibility. One of the guys, I didn't answer it, but I don't know if you remember last night, one of these guys brought up the question. He said about, he talked about the wealth disparity that will happen with Bitcoin. We're going to have some people who are going to be fabulously wealthy and others who don't have a lot of Bitcoin. And I thought, well, the good thing about that is it's going to bring back the personal responsibility for your money, because there's going to be less to go around from the government. You're not back to the Breedlove interview where Breedlove talked about one of the problems with democracy is you're voting other people's money to yourself. You can have less ability to vote other people's money to yourself. So you're going to have to get out there and work. Again, personal responsibility. I love that side of things. As somebody who has in certain areas of my life had complete ill discipline, I'm a big fan of that. I did write something down here, actually. You said politicians have to say the right thing to get voted. What's been super interesting right now is, I brought it up last night, is that all these presidential candidates, they're all pro-Bitcoin. They're saying the right thing to get voted in. Now, I believe that RFK is a Bitcoiner. I don't believe that Vivek and DeSantis really are Bitcoiners. But the game theory is now working out that they have to be because they want that voting block. It's kind of weird. Like the game theory of Bitcoin, everything always works in the right direction. Everything's good for Bitcoin.
If you wait long enough.
Yeah.
Everything does. All roads do lead to Bitcoin. But it's frustrating to wait. For those of us who figured it out early on, it seems like it's taking forever, right? Let's go. Like let's change the world. Let's get the whole monetary system figured out. We can do it, right? We have all the pieces in place. But the world isn't ready for it.
Well, yeah, you couldn't have it overnight. It was like I think it was Scott Horton I interviewed and talked about, he's a libertarian. And I think he even wrote an article on this. If there was the big red button to get rid of government, he wouldn't press it because it would be catastrophic. It would be bloody. It would be a revolution that leads to a lot of death.
Yes.
There needs to be a transition. And it's the same with Bitcoin. It's almost like, I don't know how much of this was Satoshi genius and how much was luck, but the halving creates this amazing cycle that gives us step changes every 4 years. Every 4 years, we step change the amount of people who come on board, the amount of companies there are. It's allowing us to transition from one kind of paradigm to the next, hopefully as a peaceful revolution.
Right, because the slower it takes, right, and the more people you can sort of get on board, the more likely it's going to be peaceful. I totally agree too. I think it would rapidly disintegrate into chaos. I'll tweet out things like, "Hey, if I was a president, the first thing I would do is just cancel all government programs today and put us on a Bitcoin standard." It would be just pure chaos, obviously, right? But we would climb out of it. Humans climb out of chaos, like we climbed out of World War II. So you can rebuild, but we would obviously prefer to do this without loss of life and keep geopolitical tensions down as much as possible. So I think there is wisdom in it taking long, and I agree that 4-year cycle, about 3 year and 11-month cycle that Satoshi started. I think there is some wisdom in that. I don't know if he foresaw that or if it was just luck, or just fortunate. But I think it's good for America. It's good for the world as well. Hopefully, it will help us transition peacefully. Yeah. I think that's what we all want. In
your role as a investment manager, is Bitcoin part of it? Are you advising on Bitcoin? And what cautions do you have with that? Because you're advising a completely different asset from kind of equities and
So I'll give you my little Bitcoin origin story. It all kind of ties in here. So as a fund manager, I'm always looking for the assets with the best risk adjusted return, so the highest Sharpe ratio. And obviously Bitcoin, came onto my radar. For me, it was about 2015 that I started looking. I think I first started buying back when it was hundreds of dollars. I still remember, by the way, thinking about, I can't believe that someday the price of one Bitcoin might be as much as an ounce of gold. And then I actually distinctly remember the morning. I remember where I was sitting. I'm like, Bitcoin is more than an ounce of gold right now. I was telling my wife, she's like, okay. And I'm like, why do I care? I'm like, this is amazing. We just didn't think it was ever going to get there. So
my first Bitcoin was £80.
Dang, way to go. Sub 100.
What was yours?
I think it was about $450 or something like that.
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Nice.
But I don't have any of the Bitcoin from 2013. I bought it for the Silk Road. Tim Draper has 3.5 of my Bitcoin
Because why?
because he bought the Silk Road Bitcoin.
Funny.
Yeah, I said it to him. I was like, "Can I have my fucking Bitcoin back?" He wouldn't give it to me.
You took it from me when I was being stupid.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Sorry, you carry on.
Okay. So 2015, found Bitcoin. Then I affectionately call myself a former degen crypto trader, right? I was
Love
one
it.
of those guys. Got attracted to the shiny object. I'm like, well, and I just didn't know back then. This was before Bitcoin Twitter. This is before I knew anybody in the space. I was just kind of by myself trying to figure this stuff out. I got attracted to the crypto shiny object. So by the end of 2017, the big bull run, I had sold all. So this is back when also when you wanted to buy other cryptos, you had to basically, the only trading pairs for the most part were Bitcoin. So you had to sell your Bitcoin. I had to buy Bitcoin and then take my Bitcoin and buy crypto with that. By the end of 2017, I had no Bitcoin and I had tons of these cryptos, and I thought I was a genius, like we all did, like everyone does during a bull market. By the way, this is nothing to do with Vailshire. This is just me personally doing this kind of stuff. I feel like I need to disclose that. And then 2018 happened. 2018, everything crashed. So all of these cryptos, all these, ICOs and all that nonsense, they dropped 90 to 99%. I had no Bitcoin, and I got hit with just this gigantic tax bill in 2018 for my 2017 successes. But then but all that money was basically gone now, right? A lot of those gains. So I learned a big lesson there. So first of all, I realized, okay, that was really stupid. Second of all, then the block size wars were going on at that time too. And I was one of those people, I was again on the outside. I didn't really know what was going on. I'm like, well, I don't know. That sounds kind of reasonable. Maybe we do need bigger block sizes. And then I heard the people, so all those arguments, we don't have to rehash all that. By 2018, at the end of 2018 and early 2019, I realized there's something to Bitcoin. Like it just keeps sticking around, and it turns out that the smaller block size was probably right for the decentralization aspect. So that makes sense to me. So now I was starting to get it. And then I think Saifedean's book came out right around 2019, and then around that same time, Plan B's stock to flow model came out. And then if you remember, we had that spike where everybody was all excited. Everybody knew that the stock to flow model was the solution.
Yeah.
And so the price spiked, and then we kind of came down again.
I'm telling you, that's going to come back.
You think so?
Yeah. If what happens, if what I think is going to happen over the next few months happens, it's going to be back in range, and I think he will be putting out a narrative of why, it underperformed for a year and a half.
No one's going to take that seriously.
I think some will. I think some people who are new will take it seriously. I mean, he has 1.2 million followers or something, 1.3 million followers. I took it seriously. Actually, do you know what? The interesting thing is about there's very, very highly credible Bitcoiners who took it seriously. I remember being sat with some in Austin, 4 of them, explaining to me why he's right on this. I think even Saifedean was keen on it as well. Like a lot of people, very credible people were keen on it. I think it was Corey was the first who came out and said, "This is fucking bullshit."
Right. And so I was one of those guys too. I was pro stock to flow.
Yeah.
After reading Saifedean's book, because he talks about stock to flow, and then like, wow, this actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, but what it doesn't talk about is the demand side of things too, right? So you have to. So that's what Corey brings up. He's all like a demand based guy, and so. There's so many different directions we could go on there, but what
is your origin story?
Origin. Oh yeah, we're still on that. Okay. Yeah. So by 2018 and 2019, I had basically gone down the rabbit hole. And so now my next job was as an advisor, I need to start teaching my clients about that. At first we had zero exposure to Bitcoin. And then I think it was 2019 that I started putting some clients who were amenable to it into it. I would talk about it in my monthly letters and things like that. Then what was great is I had test cases. I had things to compare to. So I had my Vailshire portfolios with Bitcoin, a little bit, like 1% to 2% exposure, and the Vailshire portfolios without. Because the people who didn't have it, they say all the things you say, right? They're scared. It's used by terrorists. It's terrible. The government doesn't approve of it. It's way too volatile. And I was like, you know what though? And Alpha Zeta's done some great work on this stuff too, right? About how it actually decreases portfolio volatility overall, even though it is volatile. It's just how portfolio mechanics work. So what I had to show my clients is, look, here, and I think about in the 80s, in the US at least, we used to have these commercials. They would say, this is your brain, and they'd show an egg, and then they'd crack it, and they'd pop it into the frying pan. They say, this is your brain on drugs. And so I used to tell people, like, this is your portfolio, and this is your portfolio on Bitcoin, and look at the difference. And we have less volatility, but better performance, even with just a little bit of Bitcoin exposure. So I went from 0% of Availshare clients having Bitcoin to small minority of them to now we have it where everybody has at least some Bitcoin. And so I base our portfolios on 60-40, except it's 60% stocks, 40% sound money. So the ones who are more aggressive have the highest Bitcoin exposure. The ones who are the most conservative, they have a lot of gold and cash exposure plus just a little bit of Bitcoin.
And have any of them, have you had to kind of like hold their hand through the last year or so?
Lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been a tough year. So being in finance is very different than being a physician. Being a physician, you have this nice, strong, steady income through thick and thin. In finance, you go up, you ride the cycles. So it's painful. So that is a downside of managing money for people. Is my income went way down over the last year as well. Had to do a lot of hand holding, lost lots of clients. The clients, just like anything, they come in at the wrong times and they leave at the wrong times as far as I'm concerned, right? And Bill Miller, the third, gave some great advice on this that really helped me personally as a fund manager. I can't control when my clients come and when they go. Like they all want to come in at the top. They think you're a magical superstar that can, because we crush the market, in the good years. And then on the tough years, though, they all leave when you're so you're already down and out. Then they give you a kick. I say they punch you in the face and kick you in the shorts. That's kind of what it feels like managing money for people during the downtimes. And lots of people leave. And I'm always like, this is when you should be coming in, right? You should come at the bottom of cycles and get ready to ride up the next cycle higher. But people do what they do, and I just have to let that go because I can't control the flow of clients.
It must be a tough but fascinating time to be managing people's money with everything that's going on.
Oh yeah. Well, it always is, to be honest. But there are some times where it's exceedingly clear from my perspective, from a macro, I'm kind of a macro guy. It's easy sometimes. Like 2022 for me was easy. I got really unpopular on Bitcoin Twitter in 2022 because I was Dr. Bear, they called me. I'm like, it's going to be a bad year, you guys. Like we were sitting at 50,000. I'm like, I think it's going to go lower. We went down to 40. I'm like, I think it could drop in half from here, you guys. That's the stuff I'm looking at. People screamed at me,
Of course they did.
It just hated me. And I'm just like, I'm just telling you what I would want to hear if I was in your shoes, right?
What did you see?
Well, just the macro backdrop was terrible. So I'm a business cycle guy. So I knew that we had crescendoed basically at the end of 2021. I'm a big liquidity guy. So liquidity had basically peaked and was rolling over now, and now it was contracting. The business cycle had peaked and rolled over and was now contracting. And stocks see that. They sense what's going on. They sense the trouble underneath the hood. And actually, Bitcoin above all senses both of those things. It senses the health of an economy, but it mostly senses liquidity. It's the great absorber of liquidity. So when you see liquidity start to roll over, Bitcoin just kind of naturally follows what liquidity is doing throughout the world. And so I just saw that coming. And I'm like, this is going to continue based on cyclical things we can look at. You can I can't see the future, but you can compare it to what we had and what's coming up next. And we have many quarters of probably bad performance. So so Bitcoin Miami 2022, I think I was there on stage and I said, Bitcoin was at 40K around there. And I'm like, it's going lower, you guys. Like, don't trade, Bitcoin is savings. You don't trade your savings or your checking account. So that's what I would say. This is a great time to be dollar cost averaging, but just prepare yourself emotionally and mentally. We're probably going to go lower. I wouldn't be surprised if we got cut in half down to 20K. And then it happened. Not that I know the future, but you can just kind of see where things are going. So